Hi, I'm Arnie Weiss, a pediatric dentist in the Brookline, Massachusetts area, and faculty member at Tufts in the pedo and AEGD programs for over 40 years. During my career, we did many stainless steel crowns, and people asked for aesthetic solutions. I really wasn't happy with some of the zirconium crowns and was always looking for another solution. I did strip crowns for anteriors exclusively. I felt that they were well formed, they got great aesthetics, and I was always looking for something for the posterior. So recently, NOAC has come out with some strip crowns for the posterior, first and second primary molars, that I've used and have found them to be excellent. Here we have a comparison of the stainless steel crowns and the NOAC strip crowns. They're very well shaped, very similar size. The length is excellent, and they compare very much to 3M stainless steel crowns as far as size and fit. The Venti strip crowns from NOAC come in refill packs of 5 and kits of all different sizes of 240 and 480, enough for pretty much any size tooth you want to use. The basic reason for using a stainless steel crown or strip crown is very large caries on posterior molars, either involving the pulp or just very large that you feel that the restoration would not last very long. So the steps for preparing a strip crown, basically you want to check occlusion to make sure the patient is biting and centric just to see the fossa relationship so that when you do it, it's not excessively high. You want to know how the occlusion will look after you do the restoration. I put a rubber dam on, use a rubber dam on for 99.9% of my restorations, and I put wooden wedges in. Put the wooden wedges in, it kind of holds the rubber dam back, separates the teeth and makes the preparation easier. I kind of deepen the occlusal grooves with the 169 burr and extend them buccally and lingually just to give a guideline of how deep you want that preparation. And you want it about a millimeter and a half in depth. And you want to just kind of keep the anatomy of the grooves, except when you're doing a pulpotomy or pulpectomy, then the whole occlusal gets prepared. After you make your guidelines, you want to go ahead and take a 169 burr or a diamond and reduce the occlusal mesial distally, the whole occlusal by a millimeter and a half over each cusp, and you want to make sure that you use the adjacent tooth as a reference. And you want to kind of follow a little bit as far as the anatomy of the tooth. Here you see the occlusal reduction compared to the adjacent teeth, about a millimeter and a half, and that's what you should look for. After the occlusal is reduced adequately, you want to go ahead and you keep the wedge in there or place one if you haven't had that before, and you position the burr slightly convergent to proximally, and with the sweeping motion buccolingually, you want to go ahead and make a feather edge prep subgingival. You want to break the contacts, and you want to, when you look through the from the occlusal, you want to see that the proximal slices are straight and should be smooth, and because you want to make sure Explorer passes cleanly through the contact. Here you have a figure of the burr going through and slicing the tooth buccolingually, so that on the right you have a clear break in the contact, Explorer can go through, and you have adequate space for the crown form to fit. One of the reasons people have difficulty in fitting, whether it's a stainless steel crown or a strip crown on the posterior, as they don't prepare the tooth adequately and break the contact adequately. We want to make sure that Explorer cleanly passes through the contacts. After you make your slices, you want to bevel the occlusal buccal, occlusal lingual surface of the tooth down about 1/3 of the crown, no more than a millimeter or so, and you should be a feather edge just so that it's rounded out and not sharp. So here we're rounding out the proximal buccal and lingual line angles, and it should look like the figure on the right, that not down and the buccal or lingual, but all those surfaces that we've prepared on the occlusal line angles should be rounded out. The greater constriction of primary tooth in the gingival area increases the danger of damaging the surface of the adjacent tooth and soft tissues during cavity preparation. Care should be taken when breaking through the marginal ridge and breaking contact to prevent damage to the adjacent proximal surfaces. It's one of the reasons that I use a wooden wedge into proximal. To determine the size of the crown you want to use, you take a perio probe and measure the space. So you take the measurement of the perio probe, go to your set of crowns, and you select the proper crown size, and you place it on a tooth, and you establish the length of the crown below the gingival crest so that you have everything subgingival, you have no occlusal margins. Here we have a diagram of how the crown should fit. And when you place it, I usually use a Hollenbeck. I take the Hollenbeck and just to kind of make sure that we're going, not trapping tissue, that there's no ledges, that you're placing the crown. I put my finger on the occlusal and just go around with the Hollenbeck to make sure the crown fits down subgingivally properly. I have found that many resins tend to be very thick and don't flow as well. And when you put them in a crown form, 2/3 filled, etc., when you seat them, it's very hard to seat it properly, and it doesn't go down subgingivally just as easily. I found that Activa is something that I've used, and it's flowable, has a good strength. And when you talk about bulk fill, it's a dual pier. So even if it's a little bit thicker, when you seat it and clean up the tooth and set it with your light, that's the initial cure, but it continues as a dual cure till the tooth is completely set. Again, the Activa from bulk fill from Pope Dent, it's self-leveling, it flows, it facilitates the seating of the crown. It's unlimited depth of cure because of the dual cure, so it's ideal bulk fill. It's good for all sizes of restorations. It adapts well. You don't need a lot of manipulation with it and has very low shrinkage. So it's ideal for doing a crown. Before you fill the crown with the resin, you want to make sure you vent the occlusal of the crown form. So when you seat it, the excess has a place to go and you can really seat it much more comfortably. On the lower right, you see you want to fill it up completely and you want to make sure that it's filled about half to 2/3 depending on the preparation, and that the material is teased up on all the margins, so all the gingival margins are covered with your resin. Again, you want to fill the crown about halfway. Again, make sure that all the margins are filled and have contact. And you want to make sure when you look at it, it's filled and that you don't have any bubbles on the occlusal. Etch the tooth, rinse in the dry of the tooth. Place bond on the tooth so you can bond the resin to the tooth. After you take your rubber dam off, put a 2x2 on the lingual to prevent aspiration of the crown in case it should be dropped. You want to seat the crown form and make sure it's firmly seated, and the excess should be removed with a Hollenbeck. Once I seat the crown, I take wedges for two reasons. One, it holds the crown in place. And number two, it makes sure that interproximal, there's less excess, so there's not a lot of trimming, and the mesial and distal only on the buccal and lingual. And then it's set with a curing light. I take the Hollenbeck, I go subgingival, and I kind of, it's sharp, so it kind of can cut the crown and lift it up, and I lift the crown off the tooth. And then I take my finishing burrs on buccal and lingual into proximal if I need it, but if you wedge it well, you shouldn't have to do that, so that you have nice margins all around the gingival and you have a nice crown done. Adjust the occlusion to make sure it's not too high and equal to the surfaces of the adjacent tooth. You check occlusion by the patient biting down to make sure you have contact of all the teeth on both sides. And then you have a nice final result, aesthetic crown that is well formed and strong. Materials that I use for strip crowns are the Nowak Venti strip crowns and the Activa Bulk Flow by Pope Dent. If you have any questions about any of the materials or any discussion today, you can contact me, and my contacts listed here. If you have any questions about the product specifically, you can contact Nowak Dental for the strip crowns or Activa for the resin. Thank you and have a great day and good luck with this new product.